maybe than you are, but we are in training to fix the world, justice. So you can watch Judge Janine, and she's passionate about getting rid of the president. That's not my line. But she's passionate about justice. And we should be too. Or are we just wimpy church members who show up on Sunday? Well, that's nice. Wait a minute, we should be very much active. I think reading, exploring, going to websites and things like that. So this becomes more a part of our lives than just religion you on Sunday, something like that. Okay, so we're doing the book of Zechariah. I thought this is difficult stuff in a way, and yet my point has been that since we have 22 chapters of Jesus, the scholars love to call it the Apocalypse of John. It is the Apocalypse of John, but they don't like to tell us it's 22 chapters of Jesus. So let's move out of that and not argue about who wrote John. It's the Apocalypse of Jesus. All right, so it matters profoundly to you because these are the words of Jesus and the testimony of Jesus, you know, that phrase. Can somebody finish the sentence? How does that go? In Revelation 19, the testimony of Jesus, which is what? The Spirit of prophecy. Wow. That's the testimony, and Dustin loves this subjective and intuitive thing I do too. It's not the testimony about Jesus, it's his testimony, what Jesus would say if he were here. What he said for 22 chapters in the book of Revelation, which is the spirit of prophecy. So if you're of the school that says, I don't do prophecy, give me Christian living, you're wrong. That's plain nonsense. Christian living is the spirit of prophecy, includes the spirit of prophecy. You need every word of the energizing power of the spirit of prophecy, because that's the testimony of Jesus. So we're all of us, I think, aware of the fact that the system out here doesn't do much with Jesus. It does a lot with the death and resurrection, which is perfectly wonderful. It does a lot with twisted Paul, and poor old Jesus gets left behind. So let's bring on 22 chapters of Jesus. Let's work at that. And remember then that our Reformation, Luther said, Jesus is not preached in the book of Revelation. I quote, Luther says, we don't know what it means anyway, so forget it. It's a dumb book, D-U-M-B. He meant it doesn't say much. He changed his mind slightly towards the end of his life. Wait a minute, are you going to go and join the Lutheran Church? I wouldn't do it. Your guru didn't understand the 22 chapters of Jesus. Not a good sign. Calvin, of course, is particularly harsh on any of our eschatology, that awful word, our view of the future. So those are not good leaders. We are then outside the pale of ordinary Reformation. We are sort of extra Reformation. We're trying to reform the things that didn't get reformed. So I think that Jesus loved the book of Revelation. There are about 30, and he loved it obviously. So he loved the book of Zechariah. There are 30 references, allusions. If you get a dictionary of allusions and references, it's amazing. There are about 450 allusions stroke references to the Old Testament in Revelation. In other words, Jesus was filled with the minor prophets and the major prophets. Just, could hardly open his mouth without mentioning it. And that is reflected then in the book of Revelation. I think the devil's done more nonsense with the book of Revelation than any other book. I say, well, we don't know what it means anyway. We were supposed to find out. So that's why we're doing the book of Zechariah. And I admit, it is difficult stuff. So I thought we might start by asking Barbara to read from her NLT. It's only a short paragraph, but the New Living Translation, the introduction to it, the study Bible, very often quite useful, I thought. Could you read that for us? It's only a brief paragraph, right?
Yes, actually I have 3. I'm not sure which paragraph.
Well, at the very beginning I saw it this morning there, about the book of Zechariah.
The temple rebuilding had begun amid great excitement in 536 BC, but the early enthusiasm had waned, and 16 years later, the only movement in the unfinished building was the stirring of the wind. Enter Zechariah, commissioned by God to join Haggai in motivating the workers to finish what they had begun. His message is one of consolation. The temple will be no ordinary building, but will house Messiah himself. All hands to the task, for look, your king is coming to you.
Good. That's a quote in the New Testament, right? Well, we live in a time when I don't think Messiah, the true Messiah, will be in that future temple, which I would expect in the Middle East. As Church of God people have generally done. David Krog's father was very strong on that incident. But it looks very strongly as though they will build a third temple there in the Middle East. And Greg Dybel's written an article on this recently, which he points out there's a 2-state solution going on in Israel. 2 states. They want to have Palestinians and Jews. That makes it possible for them to agree on some compromise and have a building for the Jews and a building for Muslims. in the same place, a two-state solution. We know that's not going to produce the kingdom of God, because those Jews, although they built a temple, are not at that stage going to convert to Messiah. They've rejected their Messiah, they are blinded, they are not God's people in the true sense, but apparently they're going to get busy building a third temple. So this then brings us to the situation, at least, that Zechariah was facing. When did they actually rebuild that temple in the Old Testament time? 515 BC, so we're in 520, 515, that area. And so you're seeing all kinds of comings and goings with Zerubbabel, who was the royal descendant. He wasn't king, there wasn't a king in Israel at that time, but he was the royal person. And Joshua, who was the high priest. All of that is history, I see it. But that's not the end of the story, because Jesus, in the book of Revelation, refers to the sons of oil, the thing I'm going to read right now, and the two witnesses. We've had some friend in Canada who absolutely made it. The only thing he ever preached was the two witnesses. And I say jokingly, I've met 6 two witnesses already. If you take the wackos in Australia, shouldn't say that. But anyway, whether you take that as a corporate group, a church group, or a single, fine, let's wait and see. 2 prophets. I don't think Elijah and Moses resurrected. That's unlikely. But however you deal with that, that's referred to in the book of Revelation, quoting the book of Zechariah. And then you're going to read in our chapter about the menorah, the 7 branches on the candlestick. I saw a picture of it this week. It has a little bowl of oil at the top, and it feeds the 7 lampstands. So now, clearly, that's the churches in the New Testament. So you are a lampstand. That's worth thinking about. How well is your oil doing? And you know the parable how some of the virgins didn't have any oil, and it was too late. And, Jesus' teaching is very tough stuff. Too late. Oh, let me go get some oil. While they were off getting their oil, what happened? Messiah arrived and kicked them out of the kingdom. Are we taking our Christianity seriously? Multitudes will say in that day, Lord, Lord, look what we did. We had a $69 million
church.
We just bought a $69 million, CNN was interested enough in this to do a whole program on it, locally, $69 million jet.
Crazy.
And you would better show your WT when you show up to church, because that's what you're supposed to do, to show you're paying the tithe. Multitudes will say, Lord, look at the choirs we had, the microphone, look at this huge thing we had. Only to find that they weren't on the right track. However that works, that's a scary text. So we're trying to get it right, to try to get to the truth. So with that in mind then, Zechariah is well worth reading, although I grant that some of the detail of the pronouns are awkward. Is it the angel of the Lord speaking, or is it Zechariah? It doesn't matter ultimately. The point is clear because Jesus referred to this book.
Actually, I have a further note here, which I found very helpful. Zechariah is a younger contemporary of Haggai.
Yes.
He delivers a similar message in a strikingly different manner.
Yeah.
Haggai uses sermons. Zechariah uses visions. Haggai is an exhorter. Zechariah is an encourager. Haggai proclaims a strong message of rebuke. Zechariah brings a soothing message of restoration. Haggai is concerned with the present, take part and finish the temple. Zechariah is concerned with the future. Take heart, Messiah is coming.
Isn't that great?
That is.
Then it's very much appropriate for us here. Take heart, Messiah is coming. Even though death might strike to a relative, take heart, God is going to work a resurrection, second resurrection, and first resurrection. All of that is coming. Hope then is the foundation of love and truth. That's a text that doesn't get a mention. Most of the easy verses, I'm observing this on a furious blog situation with Church of Christ people. I've never seen anything like this nasty argument. The arguments are really scary. They don't seem to use easy verses like Colossians 1:4 says that your faith and your love are because of your hope. So if you're lacking faith and love, try boosting your hope a little bit. Get into the prophets. Get this vision that breaks the heart of, the abortion thing and so on. And be broken-hearted over the state of the world. Maybe this will increase our love and our faith. What about an easy verse like Hebrews 5:9? I don't hear the system preaching these verses. That's the refrigerator verse. It says that salvation is given to those who, what's the next word? Obey Jesus. End of argument. So let's argue about faith and works. Is it faith? How much do I have to do? Open John Stott's book and he says, what do I have to do for salvation? Nothing. What? Excuse me? Nothing. That's very silly. Salvation is given to those who obey Jesus. So we have to define what that would mean. Isn't that easy? I love that text. I love the easy, simple text. You really can't argue with that. We've got mothers and fathers here with young children. They know what it means to. Their children know what it means. And Dad says, stop it. Guess what? This is very easy. The story of the human race is obviously the fact we don't listen to the Bible. And I include myself. We don't easily listen. We're supposed to listen. Listen, Israel. That's my son. Listen to him. If he says it, you do it. Oh no, they said, no, that's for Jews. Oh, it's for Jews. We had this argument on one of the blogs this week where I pointed out that killing other people over beliefs is a bad idea, big time. So what did they do? They murdered our friend Servetus. Calvin did. He died unrepentant. So on the blog comes up, well, haven't you read that they stoned disobedient children in the Old Testament?
Old Testament, sure.
Well, I've read it. You see, the level of ignorance, part of my passion is just colossal. It's just painful. So get out there and see what we can do to help people understand the Bible better. Any comments? Has that stirred anybody to a frenzy, or are we okay?
There wasn't anything.
Right.
We don't have a lot of people online today either.
Okay.
Very few. I think it's
We're into vision number 5. As I pointed out last week, the chapters don't coincide with the vision, but in the first half of the book, which is Zechariah 1 to 8, bearing in mind that you now can take this across the world, you know, like younger folk here, raise a fair, go to India and give them the book of Zechariah. It's all possible out there. Go to Washington and help Robin Todd. Had a nice call from Dick Eldred yesterday. He's going to be free to do ministry, so who knows what the opportunities are. So the visions, there are 8 visions then in the first half of this book. They don't coincide with the chapters, so I think we're in vision number which one? In chapter 5. Vision 5. I wrote it so badly I couldn't read my own writing. Vision 5 in chapter 4. And as Barbara's comment there showed, Haggai is a little bit more straightforward. This is more visionary stuff. But since there will be a temple, I think, rebuilt, this is interesting. If you don't think of a real temple, then you think of the church as the temple. We are the temple, there's no question. You individually are a temple. All of that's fine, so you're encouraging the temple in whatever sense you understand it. But let's watch the Middle East and see what they do there too. I'll read 4:1 and ask Vince on my left here to go with 4:2. Then the angel who was speaking with me returned and roused me, woke me up, as a man who is awakened from his sleep.
He said to me, "What do you see?" And I said, "I see, and behold, a lampstand all of gold with its bowl on top of it, and its 7 lamps on it with 7 spouts belonging to each of the lamps which are on top of it."
Mm-hmm.
Also 2 olive trees by it, one on the right side of the bowl and the other on the left side.
Then I answered and said to the angel who was speaking with me, saying, "What are these, my Lord?"
So the angel who was speaking with me answered and said to me, "Do you not know what these are?" And I said, "No, my Lord."
Okay, next verse.
Then he answered and said to me, "This is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, saying, Not by my might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts."
Verse 7.
Who are you, the great mountain before Zerubbabel, that thou should prosper? Where, as I will bring out the stone of the inheritance, the grace of it the equal of my grace.
Okay, let's stop right there. The language is a little bit remote. Perhaps Zerubbabel, I don't know, Zerubbabel, it has to do with being sown. Zerah is seed in a key word in Hebrew, and Babel is Babylon, so he was sown, in some sense, sown in Babylon. He's the royal figure here. And you get the gist of what's being said. Jesus refers to this chapter twice in the book of Revelation, so it must be important. Obviously, then, our Rabbi Jesus did not think this was just history. You see, scholars are very clever at talking about history, but not so much about the future. So one way of getting rid of your future is to put it behind you. You say, this is all history. Well, that's nice. But what about Jesus speaking about this in the book of Revelation? So it obviously has reference to the future as well. We've got the lampstand. You're aware of the lampstand. I think they call that a menorah. Is that right, Tom? Is that a menorah?
Yes.
If we went to Israel today, we'd find them preparing a menorah. At least they've got all that stuff ready to go.
But this lampstand has a bowl on it, a menorah.
It has a bowl at the top, yes.
Mhm.
I saw a picture of one in one of the books I was looking at. The bowl of oil is at the top, somehow feeding the
Yeah,
seven.
that doesn't sound like a menorah to me, that you put candles in it. I'm just asking.
Both things. The candles are there, 7 of them, and then the oil is being fed somehow to the candles from the bowl.
Yeah,
Top,
'cause
that's
it
the
has these
picture.
spouts.
Anyway, so I'm not an architect enough to know how that works exactly.
Maybe they didn't burn
But
them
they
up.
refer to, I think the Hebrew word here is actually a menorah, so they use that word. Phil would go, oh, you think of yourself, okay, now how much of a lampstand am I? How well is my oil flowing? Am I a light to the world? You know, we love the text about Jesus said, I am the light of the world. You are the light of the world. You step out of this building, you are the light of the world. Let your light so shine. That's the one text I remember from school days because they quoted that before they took the offering up. They did. Let your light so shine. Yes, they did. My church of England days. They quoted it just before taking the offering. 600 little boys in our grey suits in a boarding school. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works. I don't know whether that was deliberate, but that's my memory of church. But we are the light of the world. People who meet you are hearing stuff that they couldn't hear. Stuff about immortality. You'd think that everybody would have 2 Timothy 1:10 on the fridge, wouldn't you? Jesus came to bring immortality to light through the gospel. What? Show me the gospel, quick! I need to live forever. I'm about to be 80. Listen, when you get to be 80, you don't have many days left. Immortality is everything. Then I need the gospel, 2 Timothy 1:10. Right? Good point. So, it's an interesting point from Jesus. Immortality, and he abolished the other part of that verse. Jesus abolished death. Excuse me. I think in my history lessons in England, I learned that William Wilberforce abolished slavery in England. And very excited about that. How about abolishing death? You are the light of the world. People meet you in the supermarket, meet you here and there at the bank and so on. You're the ones that have the secret of immortality. So what are we going to do? It's a challenge. Okay, Carlos, what were you going to say? Did you have a comment, Marty?
Huh?
What?
Dan Shaw says, I think a menorah has 7 lights and a Hanukkah, not heard that word, Hanukkah, has 9.
I didn't know. Hanukkah is the feast of dedication, so perhaps there's a
Nine.
special one that they I don't know the detail of that. People write papers on that, they can, wonderful. But there are 7, that's the menorah.
Doesn't matter. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
No,
Scheme of
asked
things.
If there were any comments on
Right,
it.
good, no, that's fine.
Just wondering how.
Okay, so you're the lampstand. The practical lesson and the Christian living lesson is you're the lampstand, you're the light of the world. Are people hearing the secret of immortality from us? That would be a challenge, I think. What else do we have here? And then 2 olive trees. Well, you all know the olive trees about the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11, right? The 2 witnesses. There are 2 witnesses there who are finally killed by the beast, and their corpses are lying in the street there. And so whatever that turns out to be exactly, it doesn't matter. That's not the, I don't think we know the detail of all of that. But 2 olive trees. Jesus was extremely interested in that in Revelation 11. One on the right side, one of the bowl, and the other on the left. The bowl is that thing in the center, top in the picture that I saw. Then I said to the angel who was speaking with me, and of course when angels speak, you better listen, because Zechariah didn't. That's the Zechariah father of John the Baptist. What happened to him? He wasn't listening when the angel spoke, so he was struck down for 9 months. Watch out. One of our problems today, I have to say, is that God is not intervening like this. And so people get away with bloody murder, as they say in England. They get away with murder because God is not striking people dead. You know, in the days of the apostles, you lied to the apostle, you likely to wind up dead. What happened to Paul when he was it in Cyprus? And bar Jesus, some miserable fake clergy got in and tried to spoil the conversation. Paul's giving the immortality message to the boss, to the Roman official. And Paul got so frustrated with this man. He said, "You enemy of the devil, you son of the devil, you're blind." Whoosh. I haven't seen Dustin achieve this in class. And I haven't seen Brian achieve it. You're not living in apostolic days. Do you see that? You don't have apostles. I must say this because on the internet it's just so tiring. There are not apostles at the level of the 12. If there are, you would have the accrediting signs and wonders, and you would have seen Jesus personally. Is it clear? I'm tired of saying it. God did not continue apostolic witness quite like that. Now, it doesn't mean you could do nothing, but he doesn't intervene quite in the same way. So you have to have seen Jesus personally. I haven't. I think we've seen him spiritually, through understanding and so on, definitely, but not physically. He hasn't walked in through the door, and said, "Hi, I'm Jesus." He stopped doing that in 1 Corinthians. That ended. And do you know the canon of Scripture ended? The canon of Scripture ended. The book of Revelation, you close it, and it says, don't add anything to this or you'll be cursed. By all means, he says, read the book and you'll be blessed. But this prophecy is now closing. I believe that's the end of the canon. Something changed there. By analogy with the Old Testament, Jesus recognized the Old Testament canon, you tell your friends, when he said in Luke 24:44, everything that's in the law and the prophets and the writings. I mean, it's a marvelous verse. Jesus referred to the Old Testament, law, prophets, and writings. The same books you have, exactly, but in a different order. He recognized that as Old Testament canon. Well, the last of the prophets was Malachi. It's 400 years before Jesus. Did God stop? Yes. No prophets. Talk to the rabbis. No prophets after Malachi. God can do that. So no apostles after the death of the apostles. They didn't appoint their successors, did they? Timothy was an apostolic delegate. And I hope we can be that. You know, we can be a sort of a delegate for the apostles, but we can't claim to be the apostles. There's so much nonsense out there about this and that gift. It's just tiring. So much wasted time. At the end of the day, it doesn't change the world. So I'm keen to get clear that we're not living exactly in apostolic days. Not to say that God doesn't work miracles. I'm sure he does all the time in different ways. Okay, so that's the point there about us being lights, I think. What about the 2 olive trees? What do we want to say about that? Verse 4, I said to the angel who was speaking with me, what are these, my Lord? And you all know the Hebrew for my Lord, I hope. With a little L. Adoni. Again, a huge issue. You could have a whole ministry just talking about the word Adoni. My Lord, little L. Correctly translated, little L. Not capital L. If it were capital L, it would be the Lord God, and that would be Adonai. Adonai. So guess what happens in Psalm 110:1? Yahweh speaks to Adoni, and they stuck a capital on it. A stunning mistranslation. You tell your friends. A stunning mistranslation. Giving you the impression that God speaks to Adonai. It's false. It's a lie. What are we doing to get that clear so that people can read the Bible in easy terms? So this angel then is Adoni. Adoni is used 195 times in the Bible, very occasionally for an angel. Here's one of them. An angel is Adoni, Adoni, which is my Lord. Ask any Jew. Sad thing is the rabbis have given up on us. Do you see that? The rabbis, should, like the peaceful Muslims, should be protesting, right? The rabbis have gone quiet. They should be bombarding our West with the nonsense we're talking about Messiah being God. The rabbis have quit. They've given up on us. And we've given up on them, maybe. Okay, so that's my Lord, Adoni. So the angel then, who was speaking with me, answered and said to me, do you not know what these are? And I said, I don't. Interesting, friendly conversation. I have no idea. He said to me, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, the one sown the royal figure. Not by might, this is a good verse, isn't it? Not by might, human might that would be, not by human power, but by my Spirit. And there's a camp out there that says, you don't have any Spirit until you demonstrate this or that gift. Wait a minute. The words that I say to you, Jesus said in John 6:63, the words that I speak to you are spirit and life. The words that I speak to you are spirit imparting life. You want the words of Jesus desperately. They are life-imparting spirit words. That's what Jesus said. And then, of course, you have 1 Thessalonians 2:13 in your notes there for passing on. 1 Thessalonians 2:13 speaks about the word, and you must explain to your friends that the word means the word of the gospel, the word of the gospel. They don't know that. And that is energite. That's energy. You want energy? Go for the word. Oh no, I'm going for this, that, miraculous thing. You're wasting your time. Go for the words, and you'll be surprised at the energy, the health-giving energy perhaps that comes from that. Okay, so that's the point about spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Any comment on that? Isn't that a great verse? You know that one, don't you? No good struggling in your own strength alone, although you also do have to apply your own strength, because Jesus said, struggle to enter in by the narrow gate. Agonize. The Greek is agonizome. Struggle. Agonize to go in. And yet without the Spirit you can't do anything. It's a nice combination, isn't it? Struggle to get in by the narrow gate. Okay, what else here?
So that's the answer to the question of what these things are?
Not exactly, it's coming.
Doesn't seem like a
No, this is the word Zerubbabel, not by might nor power by my spirit. What are you great mountains? So this is the opposition that Zerubbabel is facing, building the temple. Not a problem. That mountain will become a plain, and Jesus referred, I think, to this in the Gospels, and he will bring forth the top stone, or God will, and that would be a reference to Messiah, with shouts of grace, grace upon it. So there are New Testament analogies here. The idea then of a huge mountain in front of you. Anybody facing a mountain of opposition? I think we all do in various ways. And I did...
He's not talking about a real mountain here. He's talking
No,
about
a mountain of
a
opposition.
mountainous task
Sure.
that
Absolutely.
he thinks is insurmountable.
Absolutely.
He's saying, by my spirit, my power,
That must be it. I think
this is
so.
going to
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Absolutely.
Don't
So
feel
it's
like
not a
there's a
mountain.
big old mountain in front of you that you can't.
You use the right word. It's not insurmountable at all. Also then the word Lord, let's go on to the second half and see what this produces. Verse 8. Who's going to read verse 8?
My turn.
Okay?
And
Michelle?
I'm going to read 8 and 9 for Tom.
Okay.
Also the word of the Lord came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, and his hands will finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you.
Mm-hmm.
For who has despised the day of small things? But these 7 will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of Yahweh, which range to and fro throughout the earth.
Then I asked the angel, what are these 2 olive trees on each side of the lampstand?
Mm-hmm.
And I answered the second time and said to him, what are the 2 olive branches which are beside the 2 golden pipes, which empty the golden oil from themselves?
So he answered me, saying, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, my Lord.
And he said, these are the 2 anointed ones, 2 messiahs, effectively, who are standing by the Lord of the whole earth. Now you say, oh, I get it now. I remember that one. That's right there in Revelation 11, the 2 witnesses. So it becomes clearer, although you do have to fight your way through some somewhat more difficult things. For example, what does it say then in verse 7 about the plain? We did that. The plain is the opposition. It is no longer opposition. The mountain of opposition is out of the way. Then the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of the house. Now, I'm thinking then of our modern temple. They are trying to do it. I believe they will do it. On the basis that in Daniel 9 you have an abomination standing where he ought not to. You have an abomination standing in the temple. You have cessation of daily sacrifice. All of that on any literal language. And don't forget that the literal way of dealing with the Bible is always right first. It may not be always possible to say that trees clap their hands literally. I get it. However, the terribly devastating method of some Armill people has been to get rid of natural language. And so when you're reading about temples here, I would start with that and then proceed from that. And if it's absolutely impossible to take something literally, then you don't do it. I see that. But particularly the Church of Christ are masters of shouting, spiritual. And you talk about the kingdom coming in the future, spiritual. For them, the church is the kingdom. That is catastrophically misleading. If you read Joel Richardson's book, you'll see how bad that is. He's got a marvelous chapter on when a Jew rules the world. And he says, I don't hear anything about the gospel of the kingdom in church. He said, Joel, I don't hear that. So let's go after him, send him books or whatever, encourage the guy, because that gospel of the kingdom needs to be out there loud and clear. Okay, so we do get an answer. I think, didn't you feel a sense of reality and clarity coming? When you got to the 11th verse, I said to him, what are these two olive trees? So there are two olive trees. You get the picture, two olive trees standing either side of the menorah. What are these? And the answer then is rather clear. They're on the right of the lampstand and on its left, the menorah. And I answered the second time and said to him, again, what are these two olive branches which are beside the two golden pipes which empty the golden oil from themselves? So the pipes, whatever that is, the bowl at the top, is somehow emptying the oil into the candlesticks. He said to me, do you not know what they are? Interesting. Was the angel putting him on the spot? What was he doing? You don't know that? Come on now. What's wrong with you? Don't you get it? I'm going to tell you then. I said, no, I don't. Adoni, my Lord. I don't know. I have no idea what that is. Then he said, these are the two anointed ones. Messiah word there. Messiah. Messianic figures. Two anointed ones who are standing by the Lord of the whole earth. Do you have a marginal reference there? To Daniel?
Revelation 11:4.
Okay, Revelation 11:4. Obviously, let's go over there quickly. Revelation 11:4. Jesus was profoundly interested in this, alludes to it in Revelation 11. So you have the story of measuring a temple. And Bauckham, by the way, has done some excellent work in his book called The Climax of Prophecy. Richard Bauckham, famous name in Christological argument. And the Climax of Prophecy goes into all the detail here in Revelation 11. They're measuring a temple, as you know, in 11. And you've got this thing about the 42 months, that period of time from Daniel. Leaving all that alone. Then we get down, where is it? Is it verse 4?
Yes.
Yes. What have we got there?
These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that
Thank you.
stand before the Lord of the earth.
Yes.
The verse before that says, and I will grant authority to my two witnesses,
Got it.
and they will prophesy for 1260 days,
Right.
clothed in sackcloth. These are the two, well, and there's an end of parentheses, or end
Yes.
of quotations
Just
there.
read on what happens to them. Give us the story of the two witnesses there. Read on a bit more.
The two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire flows out of their mouth and devours their enemies. So if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this way. These have the power to shut up the sky so that rain will not fall during the days of their prophesying. And they have the power over the waters to turn them into blood, and to strike the earth with every plague as often as they desire. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the abyss will make war with them and overcome them and kill them.
Right. Staggering stuff. It does sound more like apostolic times, doesn't it? These people have extraordinary power. However you deal with them in every detail. There's a powerful Elijah, and what's the other one? Moses figure, Elijah figure, Elisha figure too. A powerful opposition to the beast, and they're standing before the Lord of the whole earth. I'm assuming, I don't know, the Lord of the whole earth sounds like the Antichrist here. It may not be, it could be God. It's slightly ambiguous, but they're in the service of the true God, you could say. Or, if you don't like that, then they're confronting this beast power, and they have enormous apostolic powers, which we don't have right now. I say again, Jesus is profoundly interested in this. He digs it out of the book of Zechariah. This is part of the spirit of Jesus and the words of Jesus. And again, I complain against the scholars who keep writing this off as apocalyptic literature. Clever. Sounds learned. Yes, it's apocalyptic literature. I understand that. But the whole of the kingdom gospel is apocalyptic to the core. One thing that the lying pen of the scribes can do is to make all of this so remote and difficult that nobody wants to understand it. These are the words of Jesus, and he's deeply interested in our comprehension of these two messianic
This
figures.
almost sounds like,
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about these are the two anointed ones standing by the Lord of the whole earth, it almost sounds like they're almost angelic figures, or some figures that are, standing at that time, back then, over the whole earth. In other words, hardly, they
Oh,
almost
you mean
don't,
you're referring to the one in Zechariah here?
yeah, it almost doesn't
Oh, yeah.
sound
Yeah.
like they would be physical people. Yes.
Well, there are two anointed
Is-
ones. Two anointed people. Presumably Zerubbabel and Joshua may be something to do with this in history, I would think so. There are two anointed figures at that time, but we know that Jesus now applies this to the future.
Yeah.
So it's a double reference,
Right.
quite clearly. We're used to that in the Bible. So whatever it was exactly in history, I'm more interested in what it will be according to Revelation
So,
11.
but you do think that there was somebody at that time
Oh,
that this
yeah.
may have referred to?
I would think so. Anointed ones is not angels. Who else are called messiahs in the Bible besides Jesus?
High priest.
High priest?
Yeah,
Yeah, high priest
Okay,
and king,
he's got it.
which fits Joshua and Zerubbabel.
It does fit.
yeah, it's Josh, yeah, that's what my Bible says, they were the two supreme positions in their offices at that time.
Absolutely.
Zerubbabel, a descendant of David, and Joshua,
Yes.
the high priest. So it was actually
Okay.
physically referring to those two people.
At the time.
That's right. Makes good sense. Commentary would be very good here, by the way. If you want to use a commentary to help, Tyndale series, always good stuff, doesn't mean everything is right, but the Tyndale series, in this case by Joyce Baldwin, now deceased, head of a women's college somewhere, very good stuff. It's easy to read, it's simple. My point is we need to get into reading. I'm sometimes shocked. People don't even know that Barbara has book reviews at Dan's site. Who's Dan Gill? We heard this week. Who's Dan Gill? We are not, as a group, good at getting information around, see. Dan Gill, celebrate Dan Gill. You've got a complete education there. Hours and hours of it. Who's Dan Gill?
Just on those two characters.
Yeah. Okay.
So how would this apply, this Zerubbabel figure,
Yeah.
in Haggai 2?
Yeah.
God, it looks like he's establishing the kingdom
Yeah.
through this character,
Yeah.
Zerubbabel. He says when he shakes, I will shake the earth, the sky. He says, I will overthrow all the bad kings. So it sounds like
Kingdom.
the second coming,
Second.
and then on that day, that phrase,
Yeah.
and then he does this everything through this character called Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel,
Yes, yeah.
and he's Yahweh's servant,
Absolutely.
and I will make you. So how would this apply to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a typology going on. It's like Isaiah 7. There's a virgin who's going to bear a child there. And the Septuagint actually reads, the virgin. And it may well be the Septuagint is correct. But people don't recognize that the Greek Bible is very central in the New Testament. They use the Greek Bible a lot because they're trying to talk to the world. One doesn't know exactly, but we can see that when Isaiah says, I called my son out of Egypt, which was a reference historically to calling Israel out of Egypt. And Matthew has no problem with that. He said, but look, that's what's happening when Jesus comes out of Egypt. Of course, because you're supposed to understand that Jesus represents Israel. You're supposed to know that. Yes.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Please.
In this time of Zechariah, you've got Joshua the high priest and this Zerubbabel guy.
Yeah.
And Zerubbabel doesn't really have any power, even though he's a descendant of David.
Correct.
They're being ruled by what is it, Persians at this point or
Yes,
something.
indeed.
And they're like the remnant. They're the few people that are saying, "Hey, God has called us to build a temple. You guys started it, but you kind of forgot about it,
Yeah.
and we need to do this." They're the few people that are standing up and saying, "Let's do what's right. Let's do what God has called us to do." Okay. And this vision is saying, look, eventually you're going to find out that the word of the Lord is what it's saying is true, that these people have been sent and this is going to happen.
Great.
And these people they're not just two lone people. There's a vision. They're anointed trees, and they're next to the seven lamps, which I don't know if we moused over this, but in verse 10 it says the seven. These are the eyes of the Lord, which range to and fro from the earth.
Yes.
So God sees what's going on. God's involved. They're standing by, in a sense, the vision and the wisdom of God. The eyes, in a sense, are the way of seeing it.
Absolutely.
And so if Jesus quotes this in Revelation, it's like, look, there can be two figures that they might be the few and the remnant, but they're, it says when they finish their testimony, their kingdom preaching.
Yep.
And so I think the application would be that you might think, well, look around, no one else is doing what we're supposed to do, but God has called the few to be faithful nonetheless. And even though it's only a couple, two or however many, you still need to be encouraged to do what's right.
Absolutely.
And I think that works in both references, and
Works
it finds
beautifully.
application. And
Finds application too. We are that remnant, hopefully. We are the very few who seem to be obsessed in the right way with the idea that God is one. Eric Chang's book, again, a must-read. Eric Chang's book. Don't read it all; it's too long. But read the beginning at least. The Only True God. You should be rushing to the internet to get this. It's so encouraging. In 2006, he says, "My goodness, I've been deceived. I've been preaching and teaching the Trinity all my career until 2006, and then he gets it. It's hugely exciting. He says, this matters. Yes, you'd better be a monotheist. If you say, this one's God, this one's God, this one's God, that's not monotheism. Are you concerned with your friends? Well, leave them alone. What do I? We need to go after them the best we can, I think. So I think Dustin's point is exactly right. I'm hearing all sorts of references, applications, as you spoke there. You're helping me see this. We are the remnant, are we not? We're building the temple, if you like, the spiritual temple. We're interested certainly in see what the Jews might do in this two-state thing in Israel. Greg is all on fire about this now. He's very excited. So it's all of relevance to us. Do you ever feel
so basically,
yes.
we adopt the interpretation that whatever was promised to the Israel of the flesh,
yes,
which they're still holding on to, the believing Jews who practice their faith, we now appropriate those promises to us,
sure.
the Gentile, Jewish, Nicaragua, whatever church.
Absolutely.
So in the same way, we should appropriate the promises made specifically to this historical figure thousands of years ago, or whatever.
We are the remnant, we are the royal family, all kinds of things. There's not much you could say here that could be wrong. You know, we're a royal family, so is Zerubbabel. Jesus is the ultimate King David, I see that, but you're also Davidic kings in training, so all sorts of applications.
And just one more thing, what the word here for, I'm reading the footnotes to the New English translation, Net Bible, which says that it's the two anointed ones. It's not the word Mashiach as such, but
stand corrected.
It's sons of fresh oil.
Okay.
Does that have any?
Sons of what?
Sons of fresh oil?
Yes. Oil is the symbol of the Spirit. We know that. That's very, very standard.
I think what it's doing is that he's trying to highlight them as important people without having them overshadow the anointed figure of the previous chapter, which is the branch, who is the true anointed person. And so, I mean, it's a balance that I think he's doing to say, hey, look, Zerubbabel, I mean, he's a son of David, but they're not trying to anoint him as the Messiah. They're not trying to do that. And Joshua, the high priest, he's important, but it's highlighting them, but not subtly not giving them the same title.
As the branch, which is a Messiah title, flat out. That's good. It's a good correction. The word is not Messiahs here. It's sons of oil. To be a son of something is to be a product of it. Is to have characteristics in common with it. They are oiled people. The Spirit of God is in them. Now, on the question though of Messiahs being referred to others than Jesus, you should have in your notes Psalm 105, verse 15, where you have Messiahs in the plural. God, it says in verse 14 of Psalm 105, God permitted, and this is, make an application to yourself here, He permitted no man to oppress them. He reproved kings for their sake. We're very special. We're very, very much God's choice people. Verse 15, do not touch my Messiahs, plural, Mashiachim. So we've been misled when we've been told that only Jesus is the Messiah. You can have high priests who are Messiah. And here you have the patriarchs. Abraham and Isaac and Jacob were people of oil. So whether you say sons of oil or Messiahs, it comes to the same thing. Then you make the application to ourselves. We better be like these people. Royal family, sons of oil,
anointed.
Anointed.
In the sense of anointing with oil.
Absolutely.
Rather than
Exactly.
Just on the just on that branch thing. Is that branch in Zechariah mentioned a couple of times in the book of Zechariah? Is that ever applied to any historical figure?
I wouldn't think so. I'm guessing. I haven't looked it up, but Messiah, I think, I mean, branch here is expressly as the ultimate one. I have not looked that one up. Wouldn't matter too much because we're all Messiahs in some limited sense. But Jesus is the Messiah, Mashiach Nagid in Daniel 9. The Prince Messiah is Jesus. He's the branch. And in Revelation 4, fascinating, in Revelation 4, he's from the tribe of Judah, and he's the shoot root from David. Don't be misled there. The root of David means a sucker, S-U-C-K-E, growing out of the root of David, not before him, not preceding as pre-existent. He's the root shoot of David, the tzimach, the branch, yes. I think, as far as I know, I look it up easily, I don't think human beings other than Jesus are referred to as the branch.
Can I also
Yeah.
point out that before the New Testament was written, before
Yes.
Jesus was born,
Yes,
we have Jews writing the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran
yes.
who we could see their interpretations, and so they would quote 2 Samuel 7, where it says, Yahweh declares to you that he will build you a house, I will raise up your seed after you, and establish a throne of his kingdom forever. I'll be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. And they said, this refers to the branch of David, who will arise.
Good.
And so what they did is they saw the son of David, who's going to be the king of the kingdom, and God is going to be his father. They said, this refers to the branch, this messianic figure in Zechariah 3. So we know that Jewish people, messianic-minded Jewish people, before Jesus, were already attributing this branch figure to not a historical person, but to a Messiah who will arise in the future.
Excellent.
And I think that's the earliest interpretation we have of it in history.
So is that separate from this Zerubbabel prototype figure, the branch and?
I don't think Zerubbabel is called branch expressly.
Yeah, it's not.
Well,
No, I
He's a
meant
rod
what
figure.
God will do,
Yeah.
which is He'll do it through this branch.
Yeah.
It sounds like the same thing He was going to do through this Zerubbabel
Yeah.
figure.
Well,
it's the same ending. you know what I'm saying?
Zerubbabel is already a person on the scene. That's
Certainly.
fine.
Yeah.
But in
So-
3:8, I mentioned you did this last week,
Yeah.
so I'm sorry if I'm going
No,
over
no,
again.
fine, good.
It says in
Is
3:8,
it 3:8?
Okay.
yeah,
Is it
Zechariah
Ezra
3:8,
that's where
it says, for behold, I am going
Yeah.
to bring in my servant the branch. It's
Yeah.
someone that's going to happen.
Right.
And then we'll get to this next week,
Yeah.
when we get, or sorry,
Mhm.
in 2 weeks, when we get to chapter 6. I know I'm doing this. But in 6:12,
Don't worry about it.
middle of 6:12, it says, thus says the Lord of hosts, behold, a man whose name is Branch.
Mhm.
Why? Because he will branch out from where he is. He will build the temple of the Lord.
Good stuff.
Okay? And it also says that in verse 13, yes, it is he who builds the temple of the Lord, he who will bear the honor and sit, and he will rule on his throne. Okay? And he's going to be a priest on his throne.
Yeah.
So this is a person who's distinct from Yahweh, but he's someone who's going to come, he's going to be a man, he's going to arise, he's going to rule, and he's going to be the temple builder.
And the priest king, which is very unusual.
Yes, yeah.
Priest king, and you are priest, and then you extend one step further, you are the priest and the kings, right?
But no one would ever say that Zerubbabel is the priest.
No.
Obviously, he's differentiated
point.
from that. So
Good point.
they're very, I think,
Careful.
clear to differentiate them.
But my
Good
point
one.
was though that the promise, the end game, what God is fulfilling through this branch unknown figure,
Yeah.
and what He promises to Zerubbabel, and especially in Haggai 2, it's the same end. It's the kingdom on earth,
Of course.
right?
Absolutely.
So the branch figure, and whatever spoken of about Zerubbabel, will be fulfilled by the one figure, which we
Yeah.
Christians believe is.
The answer would be yes and no, because the branch figure, if you mean Zerubbabel, was never a priest. That's different.
Right.
Yes, he's a king, but he's not a priest. Jesus is the branch, he's both the priest and the king, so yes,
He
similarities,
appropriates
but
all
not.
that.
Yeah.
Jesus would bring all that into
Yes.
into
Yeah,
fulfillment.
good kingdom stuff. We've gone into a very interesting area here, and that is context. We're using history now from the Dead Sea Scrolls to show how messianic we should be. The problem with Christianity, I have to say to you, is it's completely pulled out of context, isn't it? Completely out of context, which makes a nonsense of it. You have to talk about one being and three persons to talk Trinitarianism. There's no such thing in Scripture. I had a quote from Tom Harper, I won't read it, but I want to make the context point. What Dustin showed us there is that the Dead Sea Scrolls are doing our stuff. They would sit here and say, yes, we don't agree that Jesus who came was Messiah, but we absolutely believe in the Messiah and the kingdom. All right, what about the Psalms of Solomon, which you're not reading very often? Don't blame you at all. 50 BC. The Psalms of Solomon, written by Pharisees, 50 BC, just before the beginning of our New Testament period. And it sounds like anybody reading here is reading the New Testament. What about this? In 17th Psalm of Solomon, 50 BC. See, Lord, and raise up for them their king, the son of David, to rule over your servant Israel. In the time known to you, O God, undergird him with the strength to destroy the unrighteous rulers, to purge Jerusalem from Gentiles who trample her to destruction. I want you to hear that. I'm going to go on about this until we all get excited about this. There's coming a trampling, Revelation 11:2. Jesus, your rabbi, was fascinated by this. So were Jews, 50 BC. Please, oh God, get rid of the trampling boots in Israel. Fascinating material. That's when the kingdom comes. So we're now putting ourselves within the Jewish context, which is so important, when a Jew rules the world, right? And there are other ones. Down in this very same, I recommend the Psalms of Solomon 17 and 18, particularly down in verse 10 you have this. He will be a righteous king. You're hearing Jesus, the ultimate branch. He will be a righteous king over them, taught by God. Doesn't sound as though he is God, but he's taught by God. There will be no unrighteousness among them in his days. Can you imagine that? No gay marriage. Careful now. No drunks. No unwed mothers. Imagine it. Solve a lot of problems, right? No unrighteousness among them in his days. For all will be holy. Everybody will be doing it right. And their king will be called, guess what? The Lord Messiah. The Lord Messiah. Christos gives, the commentators went into a huge fuss about, it doesn't sound right. It should read, they said, the Lord's Messiah. Yahweh's Messiah. What's this Lord Messiah? Well, guess what? It's absolutely what they wrote in 50 BC. And you're hearing Luke 2:11. Today is born in the city of Bethlehem the one who is the Christos Kyrios, the Lord Messiah. Luke 2:11, you use it all the time. Luke 2:11. And down in verse 26 it says he's the Lord's Messiah. Isn't that beautiful? And it's exactly what Jews were talking about. So we are Jews inwardly, whose praise, another verse, whose praise, your praise of you now, Paul said, whose praise is from God. If you're a Jew inwardly, God is praising you for being a Jew inwardly, right? Because don't forget that in Romans 2:11, you are seeking for honor and glory, and guess what you get? The life of the age to come, immortality. You see, we haven't done much with this. We're all over Christmas, we're nothing. Wait a minute. God is very, very pleased with people who get it right. That includes you. Well done, good and faithful servant. Take charge of 5 cities. Tremendous material, isn't it? I don't think we've taken this in. Now, we are sinners. I see that. We all make mistakes. That's perfectly clear. I mean, even some of the more righteous among us occasionally make mistakes. No, I was kidding. We all make mistakes. I see that. But I don't think we have seen our destiny. That's what I'm going to speak about in Vienna at the conference. I'm going to use these verses you've never thought about. I hadn't. Where it says that those who are seeking for glory and honor, are you? Wait a minute, Paul. Let's not go over the top now. Seeking for honor and glory, they get immortality, athanasia, deathlessness, and they get the life of the coming. I can't even get our Church of God people to give up the eternal life stuff and start talking about the life of the age to come, which is correct. It puts the kingdom on the map. And yesterday on the telephone conversation, I said, my grandmother passed. What? She died. Can we not even get the language right? She died. So then the Midnight Cry Ministry is only a glossy book on what happens when you die. It's all wrong. What am I going to do? I've got to do something. I'm agonized. It's all wrong. This poor man's gone into print, thousands of copies. He's got it all wrong. And so when he gets to Psalm 146, I must tell you this. It says that in that day when a man dies, you know the text, his thoughts, what happens to his thoughts? They perish. Is it clear? Let's argue about it. Let's not. The day you die, your thoughts perish. Page 82 in this glossy book. This man who is going to be believed by millions because the Midnight Cry is a huge thing. His thoughts, he says, the Greek word, we're not talking about, it's actually a Hebrew word, he's got that wrong, that's a slip. He says the Greek word is avad here. See, he means the Hebrew word avad, to perish. And then without any reference at all, he says it means to wander away. So when you die, your thoughts wander away. He's lying. I mean, do we take this seriously? How much lying can you do about the Bible before you're in bad trouble? Read Jeremiah sometime. He was
John
incensed.
3:16.
Yes.
The simplest explanation: eternal life, eternal death.
Yes.
That's it.
It's easy, but
There's
you
no
know,
in between.
exactly. God so loved the world. And as I pointed out to you, the Greek doesn't actually say God so loved it. It's just a more down-to-earth, plain statement. God loved the world in this way, in this way, that he gave his uniquely begotten Son, as the virgin were getting, so that whoever would obey him and believe is a hopeless word today, by the way. Believe in Jesus. It means nothing. Whoever would obey and listen to the Son and do what the Son says would not perish. That seems clear, doesn't it? Oh, he's going to be tortured forever. In the same book that I was reading this week, it says God is going to torture the wicked forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. No, perish, but have the life of the age to come. That's what John wrote. But in our foggy translations, we've messed all that up. Yeah. Eternal life. It's all right. It's not wrong. Life of the age to come.
Well, with that theory
Yeah.
or that teaching,
Yes.
everybody gets eternal life.
Of course.
And just opposite places. I mean, really stop
Opposite
thinking about it.
forms.
It doesn't
But
make any
we have
sense.
people, even in our Unitarian circle, who cannot get this right. So your job is not finished when you've gotten people to believe in one God. You then may have to get them to believe in being baptized. We're struggling with that now. Or we say, well, forget it. Hey, no, who cares? Don't want to be baptized? That's fine. That's not good enough. Salvation is given to those who obey Jesus. That's easy. So we have to struggle with each other too. You know, if we're all wrong, we need to have some kind person point out where we're wrong. And then help them with the idea that the Greek immortal soul thing is wrong. You don't just say, well, my dad is looking down on us now. He's in Abraham's bosom. Don't go there. False. Poison. Cyanide in your coffee. You're killing yourself. So I'm going to try to write to these dear people, maybe put Brian onto it or something.
Can I read the thing you told me, Matthew 7, the paraphrase?
Yes, please. Well, yes, do. Yes.
So I said last week that during the week I've been looking at paraphrases of the New Testament, which is interesting because a straight translation of any language is awkward. It'll be awkward, so you have to paraphrase once in a while.
Yeah, sure.
So this is on Matthew 7, 21. Not all who sound religious are really godly people who will enter the kingdom. Just because you call me Lord is not going to get you anywhere with me. For the decisive question is whether they obey my Father in heaven. I can see it now in that day, at the final judgment. Many will strut up to me, saying, Lord, Lord, we preached the gospel. We told others about you and used your name to cast out demons and to do many other great miracles. And do you know what I'm going to say? You missed the boat. I never knew you. Get away from me. All you did was use me to make yourselves important. You did not impress me one bit. You're out of here, for your deeds are evil.
Quite the paraphrase.
I love it.
Anybody like that paraphrase? I think I'm going to ask you to read that again because I want everybody in the world to hear that paraphrase. Please read it one more time.
Sorry?
Matthew 7. Read it one more time. The audience out there, it's difficult for them to get clarity on every
I
word.
put it on. Just to answer Bob, it's a what I do is I take the good and the good and the good, what I think is the good from each. So I'm using the Message, the Living Bible, the New Living Translation. So
Matthew
here you go.
7:21 from Jesus
This
and
is
the
the
Message.
Carlos translation.
Right.
Carlos compilation.
Not all who sound religious are really godly people who will enter the kingdom. Just because you call me Lord is not going to get you anywhere with me. For the decisive question is whether they obey my Father in heaven. I can see it now in that day, at the final judgment. Many will strut up to me saying, Lord, Lord, we preached the gospel. We told others about you and used your name to cast out demons and to do many other great miracles. And do you know what I'm going to say? You missed the boat. I never knew you. Get away from me. All you did was use me to make yourselves important. You don't impress me one bit. You're out of here, for your deeds are evil.
Did we hear that? Those are the words of Rabbi Jesus. Paraphrase. Powerful.
Beat it.
So, are you concerned though about your friends? That's my concern. Or just leave them alone, you know. What are we doing to try to help them out?
Anthony, before you get there, I just want to say, back to verse 14.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's interesting how, for how many verses here, 8 or so verses,
Yeah.
they keep asking, what is this? What is that? Who are these?
Yeah.
What are these lampstands? What is that? And then, boom, one scripture, done.
Yeah.
And no explanation. I mean, it's like, this is the answer, you figure it out.
Why not?
I mean, did they know? I guess he must have known at the time what
Yeah,
what
but he's been
what the
telling
angel
you
meant.
all the,
It's a good method
But
though.
that there are only 2 sons of oil who are standing for the Lord at that point. There's
Yeah.
only 2 possible choices you could have.
Yeah.
So he doesn't need to spell out who they are.
Well,
They-
I don't think so.
At that time, no. But later on, now, living post-Jesus, we've got much more stuff on it, yeah.
But it couldn't be Zechariah and Haggai.
no.
No, probably not. No, probably
They were
much more likely Zerubbabel and Joshua, who is the high priest. But they, as we know, they don't fulfill Revelation 11 because Jesus is profoundly interested in post-New Testament times. So that's interesting. Yeah, I love that paraphrase. Sometimes the message is catastrophically wrong, but that's powerful, isn't it? Are we concerned though about ourselves too? I will strut up to Jesus and say, look what I did for you, Jesus. Wait a minute. Get out of here. That's your Jesus. No wonder people are not keen on the words of Jesus. Oh, they love Paul. They twist him to pieces. But they're not really keen on the words of Paul. And I quote from our beloved friend in Florida, Dr. Hires, who said, most people in the Christian business have not been particularly interested in what Jesus said. I met him at a restaurant some time back, and I brought that quote to him. He smiled. That's profoundly true. Because they're not preaching from the synoptics. You listen to the sermons out there. They're preaching from Paul mostly. We need to be heavy into Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, of course, and concentrate on the words of Jesus, because if we don't get that right, we get everything wrong.
And if I could just add, in reference to this warning, which is probably the harshest
It is very
words of
harsh.
Jesus
It is harsh.
you can find,
Yes.
apart from the one that says, bring your enemies before me and cut them up into little tiny pieces.
Yes.
What strikes me about this is that Anthony and I, we do a lot of evangelizing on the internet, and we've had endless discussions about tongues,
Yes.
or what some would say speaking in a foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this hang-up on gifts, the charismata, the charismatic gifts, healing, speaking, etc. But this warning always gets me, because it's not just about evidence. It's not just about, okay, someone did or does have this gift, whatever gift it is. But you got to be careful also that they're of the sound doctrine. Because Jesus warns as well that many will come doing great things. So are we going to just go with the crowd and go, oh, that's a real tongue speaking or whatever it is.
Right.
So it's not just about, because, we always get blamed for, oh, you're a cessationist. You don't believe in the gifts. When they become very nasty, these things with fellow Christians, they become very personal and nasty and attack us. And it's frustrating, because it's not just about, well, here's a gift. It's about also the sound doctrine, whether the person is. I mean, so I just have to say that.
It's a challenge, obviously, for all of us to discern right. Yeah, one of these weeks I will read you from the Cockney Bible.
Seriously?
This is a light relief now after all this heavy discussion. Dodgy times ahead. Dodgy is British Cockney for difficult times ahead. That's the title. This is Matthew 24. Jesus was having a little sit down on the Mount of Olives, just across from the temple, when along came Peter, James, and John, and Andrew, and they asked him privately, Governor, when will all this happen?
Governor.
Tell us what's gonna happen to show that the lemon has come for all these things to take place. Lemon is Cockney for time. rhyming time and rhyme. Isn't that fun? I mean, it's just light relief, but we need a little light relief after doing Matthew 7 and that time.
I like this advice in the first part of verse 10, do not
Yes.
despise these small beginnings.
Yes.
It's awfully like that Schopenhauer quote where he says, all truth has to pass through 3 stages. First, it's despised.
Mhm.
Secondly, it's ridiculed. And thirdly, it's generally recognized as obvious.
Isn't that so true?
But also, can you just speak to, I think it's the end of verse 10, the eyes of the Lord search all around the world.
Yes. Well, that's referred to also in the book of Revelation. The 7 spirits are the 7 spirits working to look out for what God is interested in. But where's the text in famous one in Chronicles? Somebody got that one?
Yeah.
The eyes of the Lord run to and fro. Where is that? Everybody loves that one. Sarah found it
Chronicles
for us.
16:9.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Second Chronicles 16:9.
You want to mark that one against the one that you
I don't know. That's just what's in my margin.
The eyes, we'll read that one.
For the eyes of the
16,
Lord
no.
move to and fro throughout the earth, that he may strongly support those whose heart is completely his.
Isn't that marvelous? The eyes of the Lord. The 7 spirits, perhaps in Revelation, are these angel powers that are watching on God. I don't know exactly how all that works, but God is deeply interested in you who are concerned with the things of God. The eyes of the Lord are running by. Powerful stuff. That's a good.
The lamb in Revelation is
Yeah.
said to have 7 eyes or something.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
There is a
It's
So
very
he's
symbol that with
watching
7
everywhere.
7 eyeballs
It's
on.
very important because
Right?
you've got to know what's happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
That is what's happening. It's
I
part
like
of the story, the narrative.
The narrative, which is unseen, and that's the one about angels in 1:14 of Hebrews. What are angels, it says? They are ministering spirits, spirit personalities, sent out to minister on behalf of all those who are heirs of salvation. That's what angels do. There's a mass of angelic powers right here, I think, among us. Sometimes I don't hesitate to say, guiding the conversation very nicely. Have you ever noticed that? Not always, but often just the right things are said by somebody outside there or somebody here, which seems to take us into a discussion that's useful. And I don't apologize at all for these deviations, by the way. Bible study is Bible study. I used to say to the students, any question is valid, provided it's not completely pointless. But let's explore. Let's let the Spirit lead us sometimes. I know we're not always getting it right, but it's great reading here from, or mentioning the Dead Sea Scrolls. Of course. That led me immediately to bring this to you, which I carried with me today deliberately, from the Psalms of Solomon, to give you the sense that you're on the right Jewish track. This is what Jews were interested in, and they're still interested in. So it all puts your faith into context, I think. Very, very important.
I don't know if Carlos read Revelation 5:6. I just want to make sure.
Please read it for us. What does
Revelation
it say?
5:6. And I saw between the throne with the 4 living creatures and the elders a lamb standing as if slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes,
Wonderful.
which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth.
Wonderful.
That kind of-
So either the Lamb has 7 eyes, rather I would think he's using 7 principal angels to do the work. Something like that. Doesn't matter exactly the mechanics of that, but Jesus is watching you step by step. I would too. If I'm going to put you in charge of the world, I want to know what's in your heart. You are being inspected moment by moment before God will let you loose on 10 cities, 5 cities. Something like that is going on.
Well, it would probably be, and suggest, incorrect to say that based on Zechariah 4:10 that God has 7 eyes.
No.
That'd be very strange. I think we understand 7 as a symbolic number for completeness or fullness.
Absolutely.
God can fully see what's going on. And if the Lamb has not just 7 eyes, but 7 horns,
Yeah.
if 7 is a completeness or a fullness, if a horn is a symbol of power, and then the Lamb has been given all power and authority. So he's all powerful, but he also has the ability to
Exactly
see what's going on.
Right.
In that point, I would say that reading 7 literally
Yeah.
would be to misunderstand
Probably.
both Zechariah and
Don't need to think of the Lamb as literally having 7 horns. No, that's good.
It also says
Otherwise, I just picture.
he searches the hearts of
Yeah.
every human being.
Who searches the heart?
Jesus.
Yes. And the
In the book
Father.
of,
Yahweh does in the Old Testament. And guess what? Jesus gets to do Yahweh stuff.
That's
Searching
power.
your heart. Watching X-ray eyes. How about that? The X-ray eyes of Jesus and God are on you to see what kind of a person you are before we let you loose ruling the world, not holding the door for 1,000 years. I think I'll just finish if I may. We've been all over the place, but I kind of intended that today. I think it's all
And we
interesting.
have some internet things we should.
We'll get to that in just a second. You know, Carlos and I are dealing with a lot of this stuff hour by hour, and I'm sorry that does feed in a little bit to what we do on Sundays. But the chaos out there is almost unbearable. Brian would back that, I think. You're seeing the same thing. The ignorance is painful. It absolutely cries out for somebody to impose some common sense on it. Just before we get to the comments here, Tom Harper was a Catholic priest, H-A-R-P-U-R, a Roman Catholic priest who resigned. And he said this: in fact, very few preachers can give a reasonable account of either the doctrine of the Trinity. Note that. Very few preachers can give a reasonable account of the Trinity. What? That's the doctrine which, if you don't believe, you're going to hell forever and ever and ever and ever. Very few preachers can give an account of the doctrine of the Trinity, or of the doctrine of the Incarnation, capital I. That is, that Jesus was truly human, and yet fully and truly God at the same time. They repeat formulae. I'm hearing the words of Jesus, watch out. In vain they worship teaching for doctrines nonsense. In fact, they repeat formulae that were worked out with much quarrelling and bitterness in the 4th and 5th centuries. You ought to know that. Your friends ought to know that. They don't know it. Men whose needs and outlook and understanding of the universe were vastly different from our own, and from Jesus, of course. These formulae are no longer useful, says former priest. Instead, they raise an insurmountable barrier for many who might otherwise, think of Muslims and Jews and other Christians who would like to go to church but don't, for many who might otherwise become disciples of Jesus. What is most embarrassing, I like that word, what is most embarrassing should be for the church is the difficulty of proving any of these statements of dogma from the New Testament documents. You simply cannot find the doctrine of the Trinity set out anywhere in the Bible. St. Paul has the highest view of Jesus, role and person, but nowhere does Paul call Jesus flat out God. Nor does Jesus himself anywhere explicitly claim to be the second person of the Trinity, wholly equal to his heavenly Father. As a pious Jew, he would have been shocked and offended by such an idea. All right, your friends are out here in their churches this morning.
What they heard today.
Dangerous. We ought to be gasping, shocked and appalled. Over the last decade or so, good writer this man, I've talked as long and as frequently as possible about these particular doctrines with intelligent people and clergy of all denominations. And I found widespread confusion, in itself bad enough, but there is worse to come. The research has led me to believe that the great majority of regular churchgoers are, for all practical purposes, tritheists. 3 gods, one's God, this one's God, this one's God. That's 3 gods. Are you helping them? What are we doing to stop this awful thing? Tritheists, of course they are. That is, they believe, they profess to believe in one God. But in reality, they worship 3. Small wonder Christianity has always had difficulty trying to convert Jews and Muslims. That's Eric Chang's book, chapter 1, introduction, must read. Members of both these faiths have such an abhorrence of anything that runs counter to their monotheism or faith in the one God that a seemingly polytheistic gospel has no appeal for them at all. You will never reach a Muslim with the Trinity. That's only 1 billion people, perhaps. 1 billion people who need Christ. You give up the Trinity before you even think of going there. I thought that was quite interesting. Then he says, since writing the above, I've discussed the Church's problem of making sense out of the traditional God. Traditional God-man view of Jesus with a senior chaplain at one of Canada's largest hospitals, and with the head of one of the oldest and most respected seminaries in the country. Both said Orthodox Christianity poses too many difficulties for them, because they took the whole body of doctrines symbolic. And so they do, these clergy take the whole body of doctrine symbolic. Spiritual. Oh, they're just symbols. They sort of toss it away, I see, rather than literally. So I asked whether their respective flocks, the ones that they ministered to, were aware of this. They smiled and shook their heads. And the answer was clearly no. So the people they're ministering to, they don't know whether it's symbolic, they don't bother trying to explain it to you. I mention this because it raises the key issue of the gap between the clergy and congregations when it comes to matters of faith and dogma. Very few clerics ever pass on what they've learned at seminary, at theological school, about contemporary scholarship and so on. He goes on. Then he talks about having quizzed some man in a church who, when the creed is read out, apparently the man clicks his heels, stands for attention. And then he asked the man, well, did you understand a word of what you said? He said, listen, this is a very serious thing. Abortion is a serious thing. Gay marriage is horrible. But this is a serious issue. So what are we corporately doing to try to help them? That's the thought of that. Okay, any comments from out there that we need to possibly?
Well, there have been some kind of all along. Back when we talked about the mountain,
yeah.
It says preaching the kingdom is a mountain shifting ministry.
Yes, it is.
Matthew 21,
good point.
21, 22.
Absolutely.
And then Randy says, good point, it surely shifted me.
Yeah.
And then someone says, and me, although I'm no man mountain like Gulliver. And then Randy says, interesting that Jesus' view of glory and honor are so antithetical to what this evil age thinks is glorious and honorable.
Exactly. Which is filmed, right? The $2 billion or $1 million of the new film this weekend, that's what they're talking about. Fox News, right? There's glory. I don't think so.
Jurassic World.
Jurassic World.
That's glory.
You ain't lived
Which I'm
to
gonna
see
go
it. That's what the news is interested in. The stars are you, not the people at Hollywood. Okay. What else?
Dan Shaw said this is good preaching. Neil and Charlotte says, in our legal system in America, and then he has a quote, ignorance is no excuse in the eyes of the law.
Yes.
Would you say this is the same with our salvation as God sees it?
The answer to that question is I don't know. It's all a question of a sliding scale. What you reasonably could know, you're responsible for. Jesus says in John 11, is it, if I hadn't come and spoken to you, Pharisees, you wouldn't be guilty. But now that I've told you, you are. So it's a sliding scale. You cannot expect the little old lady in Fiji to understand much of what we've done today. She's not going to be held responsible for that, but we are. So wherever the sliding scale falls, I do not know. There are all sorts of people who die without much faith in anything. I can't judge their hearts. So you plead Romans 2, when the Gentiles who do by nature some of the things in the law, God will assess that in the second resurrection. That's my only answer. I don't know otherwise, obviously.
Let's see, and then he quotes Thomas Jefferson, had the doctrines of Jesus been preached always as pure as they came from his lips, the whole civilized world would now have been Christian. That was Thomas Jefferson.
Excuse me, I'm going to pronounce, and they're not going to like me. Thomas Jefferson says, and I quote, Paul was the first corrupter of Christianity, end quote.
The great
first corrupter. So let's be careful now to judge righteously. Yes, Jefferson was anti-Trinitarian. No, Jefferson was not a believer by any stretch of the imagination. Pardon that passion, but we must judge fairly. Oh, my favorite president. Oh, look. Wait a minute. Paul was the first corrupter of Christianity.
Well, he condemned them all. He condemns all the New Testament writers, but Paul was the great first.
He doesn't like much of what Jesus taught about.
I put the quotes online.
We've got them online. So let's judge
I got them ready.
Anyway,
Yeah,
any other
put
comments?
it on there, Carl. Carlos, the
Yeah.
link to that.
Yeah.
I'll keep reading.
Yep.
So Lorna, welcome Lorna. I don't think I've met you. Says 2 Corinthians 11:14 says Satan himself is transformed
Yes.
into an angel of light,
Good point.
and we must know the truth so we can discern.
Absolutely. Very solid. Good text among many we could use. Yes. Thank you. Whoever you are, thanks for being there. And is Miranda with us today from
Let's
Scotland?
see. Dan says, I think that Jefferson was a good statesman, but a
Yes.
bad theologian.
Gotcha.
Good politician.
Good stuff. Thoroughly agree. As long as
He
we
gave us the separation.
Lots of good things. But saying that Paul was the first corrupt of Christianity is not one of the good things.
I think Neil says not defending Jefferson's theology, but he was a strong Unitarian. And then he gave a reference here.
Good stuff. Yes, true.
And then Randy says the doctrines of Jesus point to a cataclysmic intervention by God at the end of the age,
Yes.
bringing the kingdom of God. Something that Jefferson did not believe.
Right.
Um,
Thanks, Randy.
Neil says, now we're talking about but we're almost up to the, Neil said, Randy says, I'm sorry, Neil says, strangely, the Trinity is almost always number one on church's list of beliefs, and yet it's rarely ever preached on or explained.
Smacks of hypocrisy.
Depends on.
It's an exercise in dishonesty, let's put it that way.
Regarding the Trinity, do the blind/ignorant in the pews fall in the pit?
Who knows? I'll leave God and Jesus to make that judgment. I can't possibly do it. All I know is myself, I was an idiot. I sat there in Armstrong for 14 years, should have known better. I was an idiot. I've repented of that. We're doing better now. So, how God will judge all that, I hope mercifully, for the sake of all of us. Okay, good comments. All right, we're through. We're beyond 12 o'clock.
Yeah. So we singing?
We'll sing. We want to come to a Methodist concert, Methodist Church at 3 o'clock. We'll be playing what Mozart said was the finest piece of music he'd ever written. He died at 36 years old.
Maybe page 450?
Okay, thank you. 450. In the hymn book. Could I ask Bob to close in prayer? Bob, would you be willing to close in prayer? I'm asking you.